Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, From Desktop to the Cloud, Why Organizations Are Converting. Before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. So all callers will be muted. If you have questions, feel free to ask them as we go along in the chat box that you see on the left-hand side of your screen. If you lose your internet connection, feel free to refresh using the link that was emailed to you. If you have to drop off or if you want to watch the webinar again once it's over, we'll be hosting the webinar on our website, TechSoup.org/community/events-webinars. We'll also be sending a recording of the presentation with any relevant links and a copy of the slides. If you're on social media, feel free to tweet at us at TechSoup using hashtag #TSWebinars. But like I said earlier, we'll be monitoring the chat box that you see on the left-hand side of your screen. So just a little bit about TechSoup before we get started. We are located in 236 countries and territories, and we serve over 1 million nonprofits. We partner with several technology companies like Adobe, Amazon Web Services, Intuit, Microsoft, Symantec, and several others that help make our mission possible. If you're interested in learning about what technologies are available to your nonprofit, there is a link here, TechSoup.org/get-product-donations that you can go to find out what technologies are available to your organization. We also offer courses, and some of these topics include Google Analytics, Facebook advertising, and several others. If you're interested in taking more specialized education with a 101, 201, 301 approach, you can go to our course catalog and find out what's available there. We also have a suite of customizable solutions to help nonprofits plan, implement, and troubleshoot their technology stack. So we have help desk, managed IT services, cloud implementation, and consultant services. So if you're interested in learning more, the URL is there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce today's speakers. So my name is Seema Tucker, and I'm the online learning producer here at TechSoup. We have Zareen, who's on the back end, who's helping with technical chat. And then we have today's speakers who are going to be presenting. And we have Neetu, who is a cloud service provider account manager specialist. And we also have Ricky, who is also a cloud service provider account manager specialist. So I'm going to go ahead. We only have about 30 minutes today, so I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to Neetu.
Thank you, Seema. Hi, everyone. Today we are going to be covering the topic about why organizations are converting from desktop to cloud. Please note that before we start this presentation, this is a perspective from TechSoup Cloud Service Provider Reseller Program. So we'll be touch base with all products that are only Microsoft Cloud related and desktop products as well. On the agenda today, we are going to be talking about what is Office. We will talk a little bit about what Office 365 is, and the main agenda of the topic, why go to Microsoft Cloud. We'll also talk about the differences between on-premise and cloud offers. On-premise basically means desktop applications of Microsoft. We'll also talk about what solution is best for your organization and what TechSoup recommends for most nonprofits. We will end with a small segment on question and answers after this presentation. Okay, so let's talk about what Office is. Office is basically a client application suite for Windows, PC, and for Mac. Currently, Office has 3 different versions. One is the Office Standard and Office for Mac, and then there is Office Professional Plus, and the third version is Office 365. Office 365 is basically a cloud-based version of the previous Office products, and these come in a PC or a Mac version, and the 3 licenses which do come with the same as PC or Mac version is the Business Premium license, the E3 license, and the E5 license of Office 365. They also have browser-based applications and mobile device applications included. We'll go over this a little more in detail later. Okay, now we'll talk about Office Standard and Office for Mac. Okay, so Office Standard and Office for Mac consists of locally installed Office licenses. It consists of a suite of 6 client applications, and these applications are Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Outlook, and Publisher. Please note that Publisher is currently not included in Office for Mac. These are licensed via the Volume Licensing Service Center, and it is available through TechSoup at a $29 admin fee per license. Currently, we have a limit of how many licenses you can purchase. In a 2-year cycle, you can purchase 50 Office Standard or Office for Mac licenses. Office Professional Plus. This contains a suite of 9 client applications. So in addition to Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Outlook, and Publisher in the previous Office Standard and Office for Mac, it contains 3 additional applications, which is Access, Skype for Business, and InfoPad. This particular product is available only for Windows PC and not for Mac computers. They are also licensed via the Volume Licensing Center, and they are currently available through our TechSoup catalog for $228 per license. In the next slide, we have Office 365. Office 365 is Microsoft's cloud offering, and it contains a set of service plans that combines Microsoft's hosted online services. So basically all these services are available as an application, online application, and it also has subscription licenses to Office Suite. They are licensed via the user subscription licenses, and currently through TechSoup we have 2 different kinds of subscriptions. One is the business version. It includes the Essentials license and the Premium license, and the Enterprise version, which is the E1 license, E3 license, and F1 licenses currently through TechSoup. In the next slide, we can see the different Office 365 products. As I mentioned before, we have this chart, which is Business Essentials, Business Premium, E1, E3, and F1. You can see this chart later at your own time, but just basically talking about the differences between these licenses, you can see the main difference is the number of users that is on the business plan. So it's limited to 300 users in the Essentials plan and the Business Premium plan. However, the Enterprise licenses, only the E1 plan has a limit of 2,000 licenses. E3 and F1 plan has unlimited number of users you can have unlimited number of licenses per organization for E3 and F1 plan. For all these licenses, it does come with Office Online and mobile applications as well. Only Business Premium and E3 contains installable applications, so you can actually install your applications such as Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Outlook, etc. with the Business Premium and E3 plan on 5 computers, 5 tablets, and 5 phones. Access and Publisher are included in the Premium and the E3 plan, but they're only available for PC only at this time. All these other differences it's almost the same except for F1 plans. Almost all the Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, Skype for Business, Teams, and Planner is available on all the plans. Going to the next slide. The difference between on-premise versus cloud offers. On-premise basically is desktop applications. One of the biggest advantages is that it's a one-time expense, so you don't have to keep paying for a period of time for the same particular license. And Microsoft Software Assurance allows upgrade for 2 years. So if you have an Office 2016 and you have a Software Assurance, you can basically upgrade the 2016 to 2019 for free. The disadvantage, however, is you will need to upgrade in 3 to 5 years, and you cannot get your money back if you use it or if you want to change it for a different version. And you are responsible for making sure that your system stayed patched and secure. The advantages of cloud, however, are that the costs are spread over time. You can see how this point costs are spread over time is in 2 of these boxes, advantages and disadvantages. It's an advantage because you don't have to pay the entire cost up front. It is spread over time. However, you will have to keep on paying because it's a subscription-based model. For cloud, another advantage is that software updates happen automatically. And then you can turn off the licenses on and off as needed. You also don't have to pay for any software or hardware maintenance expenses, and you can access your applications and files from anywhere using your cell phone or your laptops at any place at any point in time. And this has more robust security for all your stuff. The disadvantages is that as I mentioned before, costs are spread over time, and you will have to retrain your staff on applications and the different workflows. The cloud is also dependent on internet connection. If you buy the free plans, you will have these online applications which you will need an internet connection to access. Moving on to the next slide, Ricky will take it from here. Why go to Microsoft Cloud?
Hi folks, thanks for joining. Again, my name's Rick. And so why go to Microsoft Cloud in general? Well, once qualified through our validation services, you have access to the software pretty much immediately. So there's no, if you're familiar with the platform, there's no need to wait or navigate through the Volume Licensing Service Center, which is very foreign to users and sometimes can be difficult to manage, as it's intended for admin users, and this is the best way to obtain on-premise licensing, so the non-cloud versions. As Nietzsche mentioned earlier, Microsoft will no longer be supporting older versions of Office desktop software, which includes the 2010, 2013, and 2016 as of October 2020. And that's going to be here pretty quickly. So one thing that we're calling out, and I'll have Seema post the link about the end of life cycle here in chat, is you'll be able to see the overall lifespan of how Microsoft's going to end this service and what that means. So cutting off support pretty much means the technical support for issues will be no longer worked on. Bug fixes for issues that are discovered won't be supported, and security fixes for vulnerabilities that are typically discovered are no longer going to be supported. So a lot of that support and infrastructure that you're looking for will no longer be supported on that move. And we're urging nonprofits to start to move to the cloud with Microsoft's solution here. The other aspect that helps is it's going to minimize your need for servers and server maintenance. A lot of IT budgets are a high percentage being focused on internal systems due to the upfront costs, which are mainly high, or particularly high on that front. And cloud services allow you to pay for resource usage for what you need at this time, and allow you to scale on that reliability platform, that the infrastructure that Microsoft provides for organizations. Now, moving on to our next slide. I want to, before I do actually, I want to call out that this is able to integrate. I know cloud is able to integrate with a lot of platforms. So Microsoft is able to integrate itself with certain CRM systems. You're able to collaborate a little bit further on your systems, and that's the benefit of a large benefit of the cloud. More applications you're already using are able to pull from each other's data sets, right? So mainly Office 365 is designed to grow with your organization. That's a big aspect of it on this. So meaning that you can purchase licensing, cloud licensing, in an a la carte add-on type fashion. You pay for what you need when you need it. You're able to seamlessly remove and add licenses to users as you onboard new employees. And again, you can pick certain aspects. So you have an executive director that might need more security and encryption around their communications or certain policies, and you can apply that to certain groups, certain personnel, certain licensing structure as needed. As Nietzsche mentioned, you can work from anywhere, from any device. Microsoft particularly allows you to install and download their cloud applications up to 5 devices, and that includes your laptops and your desktops, as well as your cell phones and tablets. And again, the fun thing about this is if you have employees that don't need that access, you actually can turn that specific feature off from employees that may not need that access from outside the organization. We can work online. Work online. We have many conversations with organizations wanting to obtain a better approach on collaboration. So tools that Microsoft provides, like Microsoft Teams, Skype, OneDrive for Business, and SharePoint, allow organizations to obtain this feature at minimal cost to be able to collaborate, work on documents together, and send and house that in an infrastructure as secure as Microsoft in their data centers. Moving on to the next slide. So the questions we like to ask our clients or organizations that speak with us are, how many users does your organization have? Are you growing? Are you, with 1 to 10 personnel? To save a little bit of cost, we like to recommend something called Business Premium and Business Essentials. The cost is $3 a user per month, and it allows organizations to save an extra $1.50 on a Business Premium line. The reason why we might want to have organizations go to the enterprise line, and if you could post that link in the chat, this will take you to the our TechSoup Cloud Manager. It'll land on some features, and you'll see that enterprise lines have a little bit more complex surrounding environments aspects that you can utilize. We typically recommend organizations that have 20 to 50 employees or more land on the enterprise licensing, as the add-ons or embedded features are already existing in the licensing. So another aspect to consider, does your organization have any complex security requirements? HIPAA compliancy is one of our major ones that people are asking about. Does your organization need a desktop software? Meaning, on this question, did you already purchase, essentially obtain donated or on-premise licensing? Well, the cloud will allow you to obtain free licensing, or donated I should say, that will allow you to still collaborate in the function that you need to, utilizing OneDrive, SharePoint, and providing a little bit more security on where you're housing that infrastructure, your files. All those files are now in the cloud versus a file server on-premise that you have to maintain, utilizing Microsoft's robust data centers. Is your Exchange server outdated? Many of our organizations that reach out to us, this is kind of a main point. They're running an old Exchange server, in-house Exchange server, and it's actually costing them more to stay on this. Well, the great thing about Microsoft's platform for Office 365 is it provides Exchange licensing so you can help your users move to the cloud and migrate some of that data and offload your servers to cut down costs with Office 365 in mind. Moving on to the next slide. So Office 365, TechSoup recommends landing on paid versions of E3, which is $4.50. It provides a full Office suite, so meaning you can download the Office applications onto your endpoints. Users may be able to access those documents, across many platforms and devices as it's saved and housed in the cloud. Essentially, you can get OneDrive for Business cloud storage, and it does say unlimited here, but it's technically 1 terabyte per user per account for each one of your users, which is a lot of storage, so it definitely can feel unlimited. We have the ability to install applications up to 5 devices, as I mentioned, but a great feature is the Enterprise E3 line has encrypted email and archiving features. We like to call out the healthcare organizations. It's fully HIPAA compliant on an E3 license here. Another aspect of an E3 that you won't find on the business line is something called data loss prevention, or DLP. Some fun features of this is identifying sensitive information across your SharePoint, OneDrive, or Exchange Online infrastructure or service that you're already using. So you can pinpoint, or it can essentially black out or prompt a user that they may be sending sensitive information in an email correspondence. And it's a subtle difference, but an E3, which is paid, versus an E1, which is donated, those two, the E3 has that capability, and it's not upgradable. The E1 does not have that, so you would have to purchase that license to obtain that feature. And it's something that we like to call out. And there's many nuances like this in the platform that we try to stay appraised and provide to nonprofits as they're accessing this. Moving on to the last slide. We thank you for joining, and we want to call out that as these webinars move quickly and we touch base on what we like a high level of basic features on why, we want to hear your questions, so we can. So we invite you to email us at uscustomerservice@TechSoup.org. That'll reach us here on the Microsoft Cloud team, where we can address maybe more in-depth conversations surrounding your personal environment and some capabilities that you're looking for with cloud, and specifically with us, with Microsoft.
All right, so if you guys have questions, feel free to use the chat box that you see on your screen. So we have a few questions that have already come in, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on those. We're going to end in about 9 minutes, so I want to make sure we have the time to get through these. So the first question is, Kathy is asking, we've had a recommendation for a hybrid solution, all possible apps in cloud, but a robust desktop pretending to be a server that provides extra security that Office 365 doesn't currently offer. I think this has something to do with Active Directory domain. What are your thoughts? And she also said, we must have publisher. Can you narrow these options, please? And thanks.
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's the enterprise line that will most commonly work for your organization. An enterprise E3 will come with publisher for PC, and it's cross-compatible for Mac. If you have Mac units, just remember that publisher is PC only on the cloud with how they designed it. There's a few different approaches you can take on that, and the recommendation that you were given is common to use on-prem in our hybrid environment, as you mentioned. But what I would recommend is submitting an email to us at uscustomerservice@TechSoup.org. There's a few more questions that I could definitely ask you that are pointed to help kind of narrow down the Active Directory, the sync that you're looking for. There is an option that helps organizations sync Active Directory to an on-premise Exchange server if that's the best setup for the environment. It is possible.
Okay, so our next question is from Marilyn. She's asking, so due to circumstances, I often have to work offline. If I only have 365 and do not have on-premise, does that mean I can't work on Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc.?
That's a great question. I need to mention that the donated lines come with Office Online, as you mentioned as well. It does require an internet connection, but if you're working from, let's say, a tablet or a phone that has your phone data, that will allow you to log into office.com, where you can open up Word, Excel, PowerPoint within that URL address and still continue to work in that fashion. Now, if you have a paid version, you can download that application to your endpoint, so meaning your laptop or desktop. So you don't have to have an internet connection to open up Word or Excel and utilize the tool that you need and save it to your desktop. You'll just essentially sync it once you reach internet connection at a later time to put it back in the cloud and accessible to other devices in that workflow.
Okay, and then the next question we have, does TechSoup offer support for new implementations?
Yeah, TechSoup does offer support. So go ahead and reach us at uscustomerservice@TechSoup.org. We'll go over a little bit of the details. Let's say you are asking about an email migration. So we'll get the basic understanding of how many users you're moving from. Are you a hosted exchange? Are you essentially, do you have a contract with maybe a provider that's hosting it in the cloud already? and you wanted to move it and point it to Office 365, that's something we can talk about. Do you have an on-prem server that you want to move or either in a hybrid fashion or completely to the cloud? Or let's say you're using G Suite and you like G Suite, but you want the tools of Office 365 and you want to know if it's possible to utilize maybe both or at least point things into Office 365, and that's something that we can talk about and is possible.
All right, so we have another question here from Kathy. Can you talk about Google Team?
So Google Team, I specialize in Microsoft. So I have a limited access to that fashion or that application. One second, let me see if I can. I'd invite you to again go ahead and email us at uscustomerservice@techsoup.org. As I'm not too familiar with the whole environment of what that provides, but if it's anything like Microsoft Teams, it's essentially a competitor to Slack, so it's internal communication. Microsoft Skype is turning into Teams. It's sort of this centralized housing collaboration tool for internal communication as well as external meetings. But I'd be more than happy to touch base on that and at least walk you through how to obtain Google for Nonprofits if that's a feature that you're most interested in.
Okay, so I think we have time for about one more question. So what if I decide to stick with my own on-prem software? How long will that last?
So essentially, it's perpetual licensing. If you ever obtain anything through TechSoup, whether it's cloud or non-cloud for Microsoft, it's going to last as long as your computer's up and running and can handle that licensing. So where things will come into play is more like the security updates as time progresses, and it's mentioned by October 2020 the support avenue of the maintenance and updates to some of the Office suites are going to be cut off. So bugs that might occur because the infrastructure is changing on the back end, they're adding new features, and it's not necessarily being accounted for on an old version. So that's what you're going to run into. As long as your software is actually, your hardware is running it, you're able to keep it and utilize it for as long as you can. We advise against that because a big part of moving to this infrastructure is security and being able to obtain these new tools to make your workflow a lot better, and its ease of use, essentially.
Okay, I'm actually going to sneak in one more question that just came in. So Billy wants to know, is there a way to provide for shared folders for users within an organization?
And I'm going to read that question one more time. So the question is, provide a way to share folders and users within the organization. Yeah, so there's a few different ways to do this. One of the easiest ways is usually utilizing OneDrive, especially if it's a smaller organization. Each license comes with a OneDrive license, or each Office 365 tier. When you obtain a donated license or a paid license, it comes with OneDrive. And in OneDrive, if you're familiar with other applications, you're able to make folders, you can share specific documents, you can share specific folders with other people, a group of people that you list. It can be with a domain, so at yourcompany.com or .org, and anyone who has that domain can access this folder or this document. These are all features that can actually be done through OneDrive if you're smaller. You can house things on SharePoint, so your users can log into an internal intranet and access maybe baseline information or documents that you want housed for a broader reach. These are all capabilities that can be done. And then something new, Microsoft Teams, similar to Slack, you can actually house certain documents in a channel or a group communication chat that you've designed, so everyone can have access there. And not only that, see the iteration of each version or update that's happened.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for today's presentation, Ricky and Neetu. I'm just going to close out here really quickly. If you would like to join us for any of our upcoming webinars, you can see what we have on the calendar pretty much through the end of the year. We have another Microsoft-related webinar happening on December 17th, how to navigate the Microsoft portal with TechSoup experts. So we'll include that link in the follow-up email to today's webinars if you want to register for that. And then before you guys go, if you don't mind, it's always helpful for us to know if this webinar was helpful to you. So we have a post-event survey, so if you don't mind filling that out when you close the screen, your feedback really helps us dictate future content. So if you don't mind taking a couple minutes to do that. Also, we're on social media and we have a blog. We post tips and tricks and how-tos and things like that. So feel free to give us a follow. Again, thank you to today's presenters. And then thank you to you guys for attending. And then also thank you to our webinar sponsor, ReadyTalk. And we hope to see you on the next webinar.